Good day everyone. Welcome back to our today's session. Today we are dealing with the CSS selectors. So in our previous videos we have discussed or we have come across with this CSS selector one called the class selector. So we have mentioned and used it many more times. So also we have told that there are many more CSS selectors that are being used. So let's see each of them. So the first one is CSS element or type selector. So element is nothing but HTML element. So let's see what is that. Here the element or the tag is mentioned as a selector. So this is normal and quite simple as we are writing in a preliminary portions, right? So this is the simple HTML element. So CSS can be, or this inside the CSS you can add or you can use a HTML element as a selector too, and just write which is the element. You have to get some styles as mentioned. Just write the element and what you can add, how much styles you want. So that's all about the CSS element or type selector. The next one is class selector. Uses the class attribute of the element. Uses a period, that means a dot character followed by the class name of element. This is what we have used and we have seen in our previous videos, right? So whatever be the element, this is normally used using or defined using a dot or a period symbol or character and with the class name. So this is the one which is used as a CSS class selector. So this is how we can display. We need a class selector definition or a for that we use this dot and we need a class name, and for that we can use anything. Then write the style that you want. So this will be affected to whatever be the element we are going to define using this class name. Let's see them thoroughly, but we are just looking to the definitions all. So the next one is ID selectors, which uses ID of an element. So here we are going to add an ID. For the class selector we have done it with a class name, and for the defining we use this dot character, period character. So here for the ID selectors it uses an ID of element, and this hash is the symbol or the character which is used to define this ID selectors. That means this hash uses the character followed by the ID of an element. So see, this implies it is a, this hash character implies it is a ID selector, and this is actually the ID of that element. And you can write as which of the following styles or which different styles you want. You can add them like this. So let's see how these basic selectors are implemented into our HTML code. So let's start. We started with our head tag because this is CSS. It's mandatory to mention each of the styling tags inside the style tag itself. So first one, as we see, this is actually H2. H2 is simply nothing. It's an HTML element. So this implies, this is an example for what? Element selector or type selector. So just mentioned which is our element to be styled, and we have done it with color as red and text align to be center. So in our page my H2 should be aligned to the center and it should have a color of red. So that's all about the first CSS selector. And the next, as we can see, this is a hash character. So it defines it's a ID selector having a name as mentioned para. So whatever be the things inside, that should be affected in the body parts. Let's see how this is run. So I've done this ID selector with the name para and having some styles such as text align to be center and color as blue. And the next one, as you can see, this is a dot. So this defines a class selector, and this is the class name, right green. Okay, so inside that also I have mentioned like text align to right and color as green. So this is my styling attributes all to be done to my page. And as we have done with the styles, we just closed our style tag and also the head tag. And coming to the body tag, what all things to be mentioned is actually writing inside the body tag, or what all things to be displayed in our web page is written in the body tag, and the styles will be there in the style tag. So here I'm using it like this. H1 is my first element, so I've got a heading, and this heading has a class equal to right green. That means I'm going to define this heading 1 with the style that is mentioned in the class name called right green. Okay, so my heading is nothing but h1 with class right green. So whatever be the text here will be displayed as the styles mentioned in the right green class. That is, this heading 1 will be aligned to the right and having a color of green. Like that, I've got my next tag here as H2. That means simply another heading, a secondary header. So since I've already used a styling property using the CSS type selector called H2, this will automatically works here. That is, whatever be the content inside this H2 will be affected by this color as red and text aligned to center. So my second heading has got a color of red and it will also be aligned at the center. Next you can see this is a paragraph element so of HTML and has defined like this. Class is equal to right green. So here also I am going to, for this paragraph also I am going to write it with or display it using this right green class properties. So whatever be the things we are writing will be displayed using these style. Okay. So I have also done with the another paragraph with an ID equal to para. So ID, when you see this ID, you just go to the styling section and you can see there is an ID selector and it has got this name too. So whenever you mention the name, also you check is that the same mentioned here, otherwise it won't work. Okay, so I've done it with, or I've given that name ID as para, and here also there is a class, a ID selector named para. So the things inside this or the text inside this will be affected, or the contents inside my paragraph will be affected by this paragraph, this para ID selector. That means text align will be towards the center and this paragraph contents will be within a color of blue. So thus I closed my body tag too. So this is the way we normally use the CSS selectors. This is a nice way too, because since we have using many more tags one by one, and for these identification and for that much clearance, and that we can use this CSS selectors like type selectors simply, class selectors, ID selectors too. And we have also got some more selectors. Let's see them. So here we can see how many universal selectors, descendant selectors, child selectors, group selectors. So the first one is universal selector. As the name suggests, this styles will be applied to the entire document. Okay, that is normally denoted using a star symbol. Okay, so universal selector is normally used to apply the styles to the entire document. This is how it is normally defined, like just write the star symbol and then you can add whatever the what all different styles you want to into your page. So the next one is descendant selector. As the name here also we can see there, we can understand that this will apply, or the style will be applied to an element which lies inside another element. So in order to do something that also written inside the another element, you can use this styling selector, that is descendant selector. Here is an example. You can see UL is nothing but it's a unordered list, and inside the unordered list you can see a normal list. So in order to give the styles to the list inside the unordered list, you can use this descendant selector. All you have to do is just write it like this. It will automatically works. So the next one is child selector. Apply style if an element is direct child of an element. So here it comes the direct element. This will be only applied to the direct child of another element. But here, how many elements there are inside this? One, that will be affected by this descendant selector. So let's see how this is defined. From here it has got a different feature. What's that? Got a greater than symbol. That means the first one is the domain and this is actually its child. So this only will be affected by the colors or the styles that we have written there. So the next one is grouping selectors. Here also, in order to apply the styles to some of the selectors together, having the same selector, same styles, there we can use this grouping selectors. That means for here I'm going to define my each, that means H1, H2, H3, the three different headings with the same color. So I just use this grouping selectors. Just to define grouping selectors, all you have to need is just to specify each of them and separate them using commas. So all the styles will be affected like this. And let's see how the code is written or how we can apply this to the our web page. So I started with the head and style. So the first one itself suggests that this is a universal selector. So okay, so nothing to define much, just to write or just to type that symbol or that character star there, then you can type which style you want there. For me, I am selecting my whole text alignment should be to the center. So how many things we are writing here, everything inside the body will be aligned towards the center because this is a universal selector. Each and every element will be affected with this universal selector. The next one is div p. That means this is actually a HTML element and this is also another element. So what this suggests, this is a descendant because div is the domain and inside this you can see a paragraph. So whenever a situation comes like this, that will go for this style. Background color becomes blue only for the div inside or the para inside the div. Okay. So the next one, as you can see, there are three different elements separated by commas. That means this is a grouping selector. So I have defined it with some many CSS properties and everything will be affected for these three things together. Okay, so let's see how this is worked. So I just closed my style tag and head tag and opened the body tag. So here just see the div tag is opened and inside you can see H1, H2, H3. As we have already written to add these styles not to the default H1, H2, H3 default features, but to align or to show it like this. Font weight to normal, but text transformation should be lowercase and the color should be of this. So these three headings will be displayed as such that we have mentioned or that we have added to our style tag there. So then we have written like this a div p as background color. So I got a paragraph inside my div 2. So this is the only paragraph that will be affected with this background color blue. Okay. And as also I have closed my div and also I have written another paragraph. Will this be affected by this blue color? No, never, because this is not is mentioned there in the div. See, this is outside the div. This para is outside the div. So this will not be affected with this background color as blue. So this will be normally written or normally displayed without any of these styles or features. Also, if you need to add a descendant or a child selector somewhere, you just need to do an angular bracket between these two to show one is the domain and other is its, or one is the parent and other is its child. Okay, so this is how we can define the selectors such as universal, descendant, child, grouping. So these all are the basic selectors that we are using normally in our pages for the perfect styling of each of the elements and thus getting a unique web page. So guys, you just try it and work yourself to get a nice page. Thank you.